Okay, so we got that set up. Thank you guys for being patient there while we get that going. So I've got some lightning round questions.
Yep.
And I didn't show you those on purpose because I didn't want you to be prepared for that. Hopefully that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so just shoot from the hip. These are just icebreaker questions, and we'll just help us to jump into your story. So.
All right.
Gut reaction, you ready?
Yeah.
Best truck brand.
Ford?
Is that a question mark?
Yeah, it is. I like the looks only.
Looks only?
Yeah, looks only.
Okay, so if you're not basing on looks, what's your preference?
Chevy.
Chevy?
Yeah.
We're really going to divide the room here.
I wish I could put a Chevy or Ford body on a Chevy truck.
Really? Does anybody else feel that way? Really? All right. Favorite entrepreneur, dead or alive?
Probably Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller. If you can be a Sunday school teacher and be that humble, but then be the richest man in our history, our country, that's pretty good.
Okay. I didn't know he was a Sunday school teacher.
He was, yeah, very religious.
Favorite college football team?
Georgia football,
Georgia.
yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah. No problem.
All right. All right, we're really going to take it back to the 80s.
All right.
All right. Hopefully you remember these shows.
Yeah.
MacGyver or Knight Rider?
Oh, yeah. Definitely MacGyver.
MacGyver.
MacGyver for sure. He can fix anything with anything.
With anything?
Yeah.
All right, thinking about house styles or decor styles, farmhouse or Victorian?
Probably Victorian, even though farmhouse is the new style.
Okay.
Been very Victorian.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to zoom in a little bit more on wedding stuff now. So
Okay.
best classic wedding song.
Oh Lord, if I hear another wedding song, I'm gonna puke. I told the DJ at our wedding, I said, if you play Electric Slide or Shout, I'm gonna throw your stuff outside.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, here's the flat my favorite song, I don't know, The Walk.
The Walk.
The Walk.
Really?
Yeah, that way I can dance to it.
Okay. Did you know this? Okay. Best season to get married?
At the fall, for
Fall.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Best You May Kiss the Bride walk-off music?
Walk off?
Yes.
Oh, that's a hard one right off the bat.
This is a major test.
Oh Lord. Maybe Sweet Home Alabama, just a guitar kick.
All right.
I'm not an Alabama fan, but just a guitar kick. That's
Marriage counseling after this. All right. So thanks for that. I appreciate
yeah.
it. So we like to always start with a question that kind of goes back to your origins.
Yeah.
So because I think it's fascinating to hear like how people were raised and how you grew up. So tell us a little bit about you, your family, some of your family's here today.
Yes.
And can you tell us who?
My mom and dad, and my grandmother.
Awesome. Thank y'all for being here. And your future
My
wife.
future fiance.
So tell us a little bit about you, your family, and then what it was like growing up.
I had 2 older brothers, which were influential on me because, as they'll even tell you, don't make mistakes I made. So I got to watch them, and they were very influential on, don't do this, don't do that. They made bad money decisions, and I always said, don't buy this car, buy this. My mom was very frugal. We'd always go on Saturdays, we'd go to yard sales, and that was our Saturday morning thing, so watching, cartoons, MacGyver and Baywatch and all that on Saturday morning. We'd go to yard sales, and that was fun, we were very frugal. I got my work ethic part from my dad, working all the time on his own business, started Lusk Construction, or his dad started Lusk Construction, and he carried on that torch. And so grew up in a hardworking family. We were very frugal. I don't know if you consider us poor. We were, I assume, middle class, very middle class. But when I was much younger, it was a big deal to go to Red Lobster, and we had to drive all the way back then to Roswell. And I'm only 33 years old. I mean, it's not like I'm 50 years old, but back then we had to go. Riverstone wasn't there. Of course, Highway 20 wasn't there. We grew up in Canton, so that was a big deal to go out to eat. But we ate in a lot because we were very frugal and saved our money. We went skiing every year. We'd fill up a water jug, one of those real tall water jugs. We'd fill it up every year with coins and pennies, and we weren't allowed to put in dollars, but we at the end of the year we would save up about $2,500. I'd be enough to go skiing.
Okay.
'cause we were skiers instead of beach people, so
Right.
we went skiing. And I remember as a little kid, I accidentally, at 4 or 5 years old, stole some money from my babysitter, and I got a pretty big whooping. And when they said, "Why did you steal her purse?" So I was gonna put all our money in our ski trip fund. So I've always been very frugal, you know, as well.
Nice.
So, and something, is Misty still here? She'll get a kick out of this. Talking about my family, my uncle Larry Lusk, he taught me at 5 years old how to charge interest. I would get money for my birthday. I didn't want toys, I wanted to get money. And I don't even know why I was saving it up. Most kids buy toys, but I was just saving it. And he found out I was lending money to my brothers. He said, "Are you not charging them interest?" I said, "What is that?" So he taught me I charged 10% interest, how to take off a zero. So I loaned my brother $200 to buy a radio, and he was going to pay me back $220. He agreed to that, but of course he agreed laughing, thinking, "What an idiot," you know, because he's 8 years older than me.
Sure.
And then, so I had to go back to my Uncle Larry and have him be my enforcer.
Yes.
So he was my banker and my enforcer. He made him pay me back the interest.
Wow.
So,
Do you ever think back to other times they owed you money?
yeah, one of them still owes me money right now.
Really?
Yeah, I got this.
I mean, 20 years interest, what's the math?
Well, yeah, that was maybe about a month ago, so I'm tacking about interest on that as well.
That's a business investment now.
It is, yeah.
Can you guys see, does he need to turn his chair more? Can you guys, would that be helpful? No? Okay. Okay, so grew up in Canton area
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much lived here most of your life?
Yes,
If not
yeah,
all.
my whole life, yeah.
You know, as a team, we've got this, a new campaign and that's really focused heavily on like, why do people choose to be in Cherokee? Like people are here by choice
Yeah,
to live, to work, and to play here. So you're in Ball Ground.
yes.
Why did you choose to stay here and then to play in Ball Ground instead of somewhere else?
Probably family is 90% of that. It's a badge of honor to look at, we have a large family on both sides, and I can count on two hands how many family members live out of state. They all live in Cherokee County. I think about 10 of them moved to Cherokee County, Alabama, so even they're in Cherokee County in a different state.
Right.
But
The other Cherokee County?
that's correct, the other Cherokee County. It's the cheaper one with no traffic, you know. But I love it here. We, on my dad's side, we have a rich history of my third great grandfather was Joseph Knox, Knox Elementary, Knox Road. So they've been here since the founding of Cherokee County. On my mom's side, my fourth great grandfather, John Berkeley Garrison, was one of the first sheriff, or the first sheriff of Cherokee County. So I have a rich history on both sides. So I don't ever want to leave here. My family's here.
Right.
Even my fifth and sixth cousins I'm close to. You know, not to mention I've got on my dad's side alone 52 first cousins.
Wow.
So
That's
big
awesome.
family. I don't ever expect to leave due to that. As far as the geography and all that, I mean, we're close to Atlanta, be able far enough away to still live in the country, rural area. We hire a lot of kids at the Wheeler House from local high schools, and when I talk to their parents, they say things that are the reason why I like it, and they say we come here because when we moved from Cobb or Gwinnett or wherever, our kids didn't know people that were, you know, I don't know how they worded it, but from here, it's just a different feel. There's a different way about people, and they like that sense of community. And when you get into certain areas that are too overpopulated, you lose that
Sense of community.
sense of community, yeah. Yeah, which I'm a big history buff too. That's why I love history, because
Okay.
I reserved this building, you know. But
Right.
it brings a sense of purpose to a community instead of it just being a bunch of houses.
Right, sure. So that's a good transition. I want to hear some of the Wheeler House story for people here too, but
Sure.
I'm curious, how would you define what an entrepreneur is? Like, what is an entrepreneur? And then speak a little bit to why you chose that path versus like college or some kind of corporate career
Yeah.
path.
Well, I've had to go back and apologize to almost all my teachers, and they like me now, but I was a big rebel, and anytime somebody in the class did something, I did the opposite. It's too, I can't take direction from somebody. I want to do it myself.
Right.
And on both sides of my family, my mom and my dad's, there's a lot of entrepreneurs. My dad, my grandfather, on both sides. I think every single one of my uncles own their own business or So
it's in your DNA.
it's in DNA. Yeah, I think I made a comment one time. I said I would rather lose trying to be my own boss than win working for somebody else. You know, and I did lose many times, and that's some lessons you learn when you lose. But I'd rather learn those hard knocks than to work for somebody. What was the other part of that? You said, well, what describes an entrepreneur? What?
Yeah, how would you define it?
Somebody that you control your own destiny, control your own paycheck, your own work ethic, and what you put into it is the exact equal and opposite of what you get out of it. Someone who, you don't have to necessarily provide a service or product, but someone who can provide a service or product better, cheaper than your competition. I love being competitive, so I love being in that. I was talking with a lady here today that when we started, we had 2 venues in Cherokee County, and we built the bar in 13. And last year, we sat down and did a comparison chart. And I want to know every venue and what they charged and how we rated them. And there was 28 venues in Cherokee County.
Wow.
And of those 28, 26 are rustic barn themes. So we were the second, and now we're just 2 of 28.
Yeah.
So, but it brings some competition. We've always had lower prices here. We've had to offer different things. So it's been a better process for the bride because she gets better stuff at a better price. So I like the competition and I like the game.
So that's a good transition. So tell the full Wheeler House story, right? From when you're a child, you used to drive by the house to how you ended up getting it.
Well, the house was yellow and it was I call it puke yellow. It was ugly. And I would drive by as young as 5 years old. We went to church in Macedonia and we would go to Ball Ground to eat Two Brothers often, almost once or twice a
Two
month.
Brothers Barbecue.
Barbecue, yeah. It's about as good as that. I'd say it's pretty good. But
You can say it's better. They're not here right now.
they're not here right now. It is good though. I like vinegar-based sauce. So we would go there and we'd pass the big yellow house. Well, that would be the long way around. It's quicker to go up East Cherokee Drive. So, but as a young kid, I would always want to go that way to see the house.
Right.
I tried buying it when I was 18. I didn't really have the money. I was just out there making an offer, hoping to figure it out later.
At 18?
At 18.
Okay.
I tried buying it at 21 or 3. I can't really remember. And then I bought it when I was 26. So the third was the charm. And a friend of mine knew it was my dream home. She was a teacher, worked a free home. So she drove by at like 7:30 in the morning and saw them nailing the sign in the yard. She called me. And so I went up there within 20 minutes. I had an offer in my hand to hand to the lady.
With money to pay to buy.
Well, just an offer with an earnest money check.
Yeah.
At that time, I was down on my luck. I was living at home. The recession was right in the middle. It was 2010. So, I mean, I was, went from here and I was down at the bottom, And so I think it was a God thing because whenever I made the offer, they had multiple offers. The first 2 times I tried buying it, it was 187, over 300. The second time, when I called her, it was listed for 95,000.
Wow.
And it needed a lot of work.
House and acre.
House of 1 acre. It needed a lot of work. But I had drove by it for years, and I never thought about necessarily making a wedding venue. But a lot of my friends at that time were getting married. I was in my mid-20s, and I saw what they got and what they paid, and I was just, wow, I can, in a female-dominated world, even I can go in and figure out a way to make this work, and do it for cheaper.
Yeah.
But when I went to go buy it, they had 10 offers, and she said, well, unfortunately, we got the highest best use because it was a bank-owned property, and that's their very strict rules. So whenever I went to go make an offer, it was listed at 95. So I called my agent, so I wanted to go up to 100. She said, Lee, you're crazy. I said, no, just trust me,
Crazy for going that high.
Crazy going that high. She goes, I think you're being, I said, no, it's a heck of a deal, Well, there's not a lot of buyers in the market, so just trust me, So then I called her back when she was making an offer, said, do 101, because somebody's going to go to 100. And then she sent, I think she either sent the offer or was about to send it. I called her and said, I'd have done the $100.
$100.
$100. And I made my contract all cash, even though I had no cash. So I was risking my $1,000 earnest money. So anybody here's in real estate, I just risked my $1,000 earnest money, and I had 30 days to figure out how to get a bank loan. I had horrible credit. I had a negative net worth due to the recession. I was living at home. I had nothing.
You were living at home with your
living
parents?
at home, yeah. At 25, I had no money. Had nothing. I had 2 vehicles that were paid for, that I still have. But and then come back, and at the closing table, the guy's phone was going off the hook. I figured out how to get it financed. And I asked him, I said, who all's texting you. He said, Lee, my phone's ringing off the hook. He said, everybody's wanting to know if you closed. I said, well, now that I've closed, I want you to tell me what it was. Well, they had an offer full price. They had an offer at 100. They had an offer for 101. He said, yours come in at $101, $100. So
Yeah.
the bank had to take it. It was all cash off, and it was the highest and best.
$100.
$100.
Yeah.
So little leap of faith there, and
Right. Well, a lot of risk,
a lot of risk. Yeah.
but a lot of gut, right?
A lot of-
You're-
yeah,
You
yeah.
just felt like it was the right decision.
That was right. Yeah, it was. I mean, when I saw the price at 95, I knew I had to do whatever I had to do to get the deal, and then I'd figure all that out later. And we spent more than that just on renovating. But I just knew if I could get my hands on it. The previous people before me had hired out a lot of the renovations, and you can't do that. You cannot on a money pit house like that. You cannot hire out everything. You have to be there every day and do the work.
Which is some of what you did, right?
Yes, it is.
So
Yeah. So before I bought the Wheeler house, I was in real estate since I was 18. I was actually still in high school when I bought my first rental property, and renovated it, put in new carpet, paint, and flipped it, and doubled my money. I was like, wow, that was good, you know. And so I think by the time I bought the Wheeler house, I had a few rental properties. Of course, they were worth negative what I owed,
Right.
so I had a negative net worth, so it didn't matter. But I held on to them through the downturn and bought the Wheeler house and got it renovated.
And so this would have been, was it beginning of 2010?
10, yes, correct.
2010, and then by the time, so you purchase it, you own it,
Yes.
now the process of renovating it.
Yeah, and I'm real bad about upkeeping my books, and I've hired a real good accountant here lately. I'm real good at certain things. I'm real bad, really, really bad at certain things. One of them is organization and keeping up my books. So I didn't have at the time, which was me, as far as, so I didn't have time to do the books. And about 6 months into renovation, I had a check bounce. I said, there's no way. I got 100 and some thousand to start with. I probably still got 30 in the bank from my renovation account, but it was all gone. So moved in a cot and literally just started sleeping there and worked all night.
In the house?
In the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the house. And then when the guys got there at 6 in the morning, I'd get up and go right back to work with them. Had to let my guys go because they didn't have enough money. I gave them, a month notice or whatever. And at that point, it was just all hands on deck. A lot of friends and family helped. And
So at this, do you know how to do all these renovations yourself?
yeah, I did. That was one thing about my dad I didn't like when I was little, but I appreciate now is I remember I was up on an I-beam, and I'm scared of heights.
Yeah.
But I was hanging on to an I-beam floating about 20 feet in the air, building a 3-car garage in his house. And he was on the forklift, had it tied to a chain, and I'm hanging from a chain on this I-beam, and I got to stick this threaded rod to connect it to the other side. And as I'm doing that, my cousins are across the road, and I hear them throwing firecrackers. It's 4th of July, by the way. I hear them throwing firecrackers at my youngest cousin, and hear him scream blood and murder. And I want to go there so bad and play with them and throw firecrackers at my little cousin. And but now I know how to do all that.
You can still throw firecrackers.
I can, yeah, sure. Yeah, so he does all my plumbing now, so I don't want to throw him at him anymore. So.
But I'm sure he owes you money, probably, right?
No.
Interest.
And I think I might owe him some money right
Really?
now. Yeah.
All right. So talk about like the transition too, because you go from renovating, then you get people to help you, and you start to get it up, and then how do you go from there to this is gonna be a wedding venue? Let's
Yeah.
get our first several weddings.
I had lots of people drive by and ask, hey, we want to start a wedding venue here, or not we want to start, but say we want to have a wedding here. And there for a while, it's like, okay, I think I'm onto something here. My initial plan was to be a bachelor, rent the 3 extra bedrooms, and pay my mortgage, and I was going to live there for free for as long as I wanted to. And then I had one lady stop by. She was on Design Star on HGTV, and she said, hey, I think you start a venue, and I'd like to partner with you. I said, I don't know anything about weddings, never been married, I don't know how to do this. She said, well, I can. So she kind of helped me start the process, and then in 2011, we had our first wedding. We went to a wedding show, and I remember we had a fake paint grass on our picture at the wedding show because we didn't have grass.
Yeah.
But we knew that by the time the brides booked a tour, we'd have sod in. So we were painting on grass, and then in 2013 we were having maybe 20 weddings a year, 22 a year, and we were just kind of fledgling. We're not making enough money. We had too many weddings where we almost needed to hire somebody, but I didn't have enough money to make that next leap. And then I had a rental house burned down. Luckily, nobody got hurt, but when I got I think it was like a $22,000 check from the bank, it was like, okay, build a rental house bag that rents for $400 a month, or take this $22,000 as a down payment and let's go build a barn. And that's where the Waffle House story comes from. And I was going to do a ballroom, and my dad said, no, let's build a barn. It's going to be cheaper. And we ended up, it was around the time that Pinterest and Twitter, or Pinterest and Instagram exploded. And the barn theme just got crazy. I mean, we really hit it at the perfect time.
Yeah.
And so the next day I called the city, and the city ball grounds are amazing. I owe a lot of appreciation to them. They have no codes. They have no code enforcers, no restrictions. You don't have to hire a professional to build it. So I did all my own plumbing, all my electrical. I helped frame it, the concrete. I mean, we did everything. So I called the city and I said, here's what I want to do: build a 7,000 square foot building. Phase 1's 3,400 square feet. He goes, okay, you don't need a permit. I said, so I can go there tomorrow, start cutting down trees. He goes, yeah. So next day I went and started cutting down trees.
This is Eric with the city
Eric
ball
Wilmore.
ground.
Right. Yeah, city ball ground is
Yeah.
still that good to work with.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
So anybody here that wants to build,
yes,
you want them to
yeah,
build a ball ground.
that's correct. Yeah, yeah.
So now so 2011 first wedding, now it's 2018, we're almost to a close, which is crazy to think about. 7 years, you've done 500 or so weddings,
Yeah, I think it's about 450.
and now you've got the barn as an additional
Yes.
venue. And so, tell a little bit more about that story, because I think that's interesting too before
Yes.
we transition.
So-
you had the napkin, you doodled it, you're talking with your
Mhm.
dad, and then how did you get people to catch the vision? Because you've got brides showing up to
Yes.
say, I love the house, and what are you going to build over here?
Yeah.
So how do they sign up without knowing what you're doing?
Well, we actually had to get a variance because the building was so close to our setback. It's like 5 foot from our property line. So once we got all that worked out, we built the barn. And how we did it is, I started with 22,000, which didn't even touch it. I mean, that was just to clear it, maybe get the footings poured and some grading done. But I knew that once we started, if I could just have the bride see what we're going to build, they'll book. And I've tried doing this in real estate, and I've never succeeded at it. And I finally found one business that will, is getting money up front for a service that's not due for a year. I mean, how many can say that? I mean, how many businesses do you get paid, and then 1 year you have to provide that service? So on a wedding that might cost $10,000, you'll get a $3,000 or $4,000 deposit up front. So I drew that picture with my niece's watercoloring kit, and I drew it, and we framed it where it wouldn't get wet. And I just sat it out in my side yard, so when brides come up, they saw a big mud hole. We said, okay, that building's gonna be right there.
Imagine what this mud hole is going to look
What the
like.
mud hole's gonna look like.
Yeah.
And so we started building, and as one bride would pay, we take her money to go build it. Because I knew that, I probably need I can't remember the numbers. If I 30 brides book, then I can have this built in 3 months. And the next wedding won't be for another 7, 8, 9 months. So I knew that it was a leap of faith. I knew that it was a calculated risk. It wasn't a wild risk. It was a very thought out, calculated risk, and luckily it worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you had it done in time for the first wedding?
We did. As a matter of fact, so we got the money, the first 22,000 in December of 12. We started, I think it was actually the January 1st of 13. And I was showing my fiance pictures the other day. I have a picture of March the 22nd, and the barn is a wreck. I mean, it's not, the walls are not even covered. It was just, it looks like we were about 2 months out. And then one of the next pictures was the 27th of March, 5 days later, and we had tables and chairs and linens out. We had our first wedding in 5 days. And I meant to send you the picture, but it was a wreck. It was a wreck. I mean, the electrical wasn't done. As a matter of fact, on our first wedding, we had it during the daytime. We didn't have lights. We had it during the daytime. It was a day wedding. I had lights hung. They wasn't even hooked up. The whole barn didn't have electrical ran to it.
So what, lights just coming in from
from the daylight.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, so you had a wedding in there like that?
We did. Yeah, we
Pictures?
had one. I think it was another month too before we had one in the barn.
Right.
But after that, and then slowly we would build the doors, and then we would add it on the bathrooms, and we added the commercial kitchen, and now we're done. No more add-ons. But
Barn number 2.
barn number 2, yeah. Well, that's one reason why we don't know for sure yet about our wedding days, because we're potentially looking at building another venue.
Yeah.
Just up the road.
I'm going to ask you more about that later
Yeah.
before we finish.
Okay.
So talk about, so for those who may not understand it, I mean, if a bride walks up and they want to do their entire wedding here, what are the full services that you guys provide for?
Well, everything except for a preacher and a photographer. So we tell the bride, show up with a dress and a preacher and a photographer, and then we'll do the rest. So that was one struggle owning the business is, and this goes for any sector, I've owned real estate business. I had a biodiesel business. So every business I've ever been involved in or started, you have to know the market. And so best way to do it is just go out and ask. So we would go to wedding venues and say, hey, what do you charge? Can I get a copy of your contract? And people do it to us now, and people that work for me get so mad. I'm like, no, I did it. So if people want to start a business, they'll
Scouting
call
prices, right?
Yeah, scouting prices, asking for a contract, and they haven't even asked if the date's available. So we get it, and that's fine. It's just part of it.
And I mean, that's part of market research.
It is part of market research. So we didn't know, do you charge a la carte? Do you charge a full package price? So that actually was a trial and error for probably 2 years before we finally found our sweet spot, which is now we offer a full service. We brought in an in-house catering company, so we basically do everything in-house.
So you have a pretty interesting Tom Cruise story.
Yeah.
Which is really weird because Ashley last month had a Tom Cruise story. I don't have a Tom Cruise story. Well, my Tom Cruise story is I've never seen Top Gun until like a week ago,
Yeah.
5 days ago. So anyway, that's another story.
Well, I actually have
Tell
in my life seen Top Gun.
You've never seen Top Gun?
Not the full. No, I've seen snippets of it.
Okay.
I've seen the full movie.
We need to get together.
Yes, and do, yeah.
So as far as Cherokee County, I mean, it's Cherokee County is what's called a camera-ready community and has
Yeah.
been for 8 years now. And so, and Molly Mercer, who I think is here still, if you want to talk to her, ask her questions about the film industry in Cherokee, she's happy to do that afterwards. But there's already just this year, there's been 28 projects filmed, which is a 56% increase when you compare it to this time last year, which is
Yeah.
pretty encouraging. So there's just been a lot of activity, and for those who don't know, the Tom Cruise's movie American Made was involved
Yeah.
around in 2014.
Yes.
So I think your Tom Cruise story is pretty fascinating.
Well, and on a side note, so Tom Cruise's movie was what finally got Ball Ground to be Ball Ground. We had no parking, and the only parking we had was full of rocks. So when Tom Cruise came, they said, here's where we want to set this up, but you got to get rid of the rocks.
Yeah.
And they finally convinced the family to get rid of them. And honestly, that was when the Burger Bus got built. That was when all these other things got built and started succeeding when we finally had parking. So that was a huge shot in the arm for Ball Ground.
Yeah.
But they called. I was hoping to be in the movie. I hoped the Wheeler House could be in the movie, but they never called. But the night before,
And that's the story.
That's the story. Yeah. I was hoping to be in it. The wedding venue at Rome, it was in Sweet Home, Alabama, and they were booked 3 years out because it was in a popular movie. So
Yeah.
that would be a huge deal. But so they called. A buddy of mine's a preacher at the local church there called Faith Baptist, and he called because I play the piano there when I go. And he said, hey, we have a scene. We're shooting here tomorrow, and we need a piano player. He said, I told him I said I know somebody. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And he said, can you come? I said, yeah, when is it? He said, tomorrow. It's like, oh, okay. He said, you'll be there at 7 or 8 o'clock, whatever it was. Okay. And I didn't even care. They ended up paying us, I think, $8, $9 an hour. I just wanted to go, So I did finally get to meet Tom Cruise. But when we go inside to get our clothes on, I was wearing my members only jacket that I got from my grandfather. And they said, have you already been to dressing? I said, no, this is my
Yeah.
jacket.
What, full beard?
Yeah. So they said, oh wow, you're already dressed for the 80s, So they changed everything out except for my coat. I did get to wear my coat. And then so we got to shave your beard. And I said, I've had this since I was 14. I said, I can't do that. And they said, well, we'll just talk about it later. So whenever we got to this part and I was about to go play the piano, one of the producers stopped me and said, no, you got to shave that. I said, I'm not shaving this. I sound like a fat baby when I shave my beard. I'm not shaving. I've asked since I was 14, and they said, you can't do it. And then Tom Cruise's wife come out, and
In the movie is.
I forgot her name, blonde lady. I know she's famous. I'm not big on pop culture and all that, but
Yeah.
she came out and she started talking about, well, your eyes are so pretty, and you'll still be fine. I was like, okay,
She's buttered me
She
up.
buttered me up. So I mean, she actually and started shaving my beard. I had a mustache. And I look like a 1980s gay porn star. It was bad. And they shaved it, and then after all of that, go inside, and we shot maybe 30 minutes where I was up to it. And then after that, I said, well, we're going to pipe in some music.
So you're not going to
So I'm not actually playing.
Right.
And so then I just sit out there in the crowd. I'm like, really?
To shave my beard. I shave my
Yeah.
entire
And
beard.
then I'm like, whatever. At least I'm here. And there's Tom Cruise, and I got to meet him. And then after all that was said and done in the movie, they took out the entire scene. For 2 days, they set up, shot. They fed us great food. They paid 50 extras. God knows how much that cost. And then the whole entire scene was cut out.
And you're left with a mustache.
And I'm left with a mustache. It probably took me a month to grow it back.
Wow.
But I had one chance to walk up to Tom, and I put my arm around him. He's about right here, And I said, I haven't shaved my beard since I was 14 years old. I said, but it took your beautiful wife to convince me, and then I finally decided I'd shave it just for you. So.
Wow.
But he was a real nice guy. And he said Bob Brown was very friendly, and he loved working in Georgia.
Yeah, that's cool. So I want to transition to what, because I know you come from a background or a family of hard work and entrepreneurs, and I've been an entrepreneur myself with my dad for several years, and there's sometimes a tendency for entrepreneurs to wear all the hats, try to do everything, and think that they can do it all themselves. And what they don't realize, like you said earlier, is you're really good at some things, but there's other things you probably shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
So how do you get to a point where you realize, well, I'm good at these three things, but now I know I'm really not good at these things? I mean, that requires a certain level of kind of putting your hustle aside for a minute and learning to trust other people to help you.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that? How do you figure that
I
out?
always thought I was good at delegating tasks, but everybody in my family, they're like, you just need to get out of the way. And I'm like, well, tell me how I'm in the way, So it's always a fight. But there are certain things I'm good at. I'm not good at sales. I'm not good at talking to brides. They don't want to talk to me. Someone who's never been married, someone who's a guy, with facial hair. They want to talk to, someone.
You should just leave the mustache.
I could do the mustache. Yeah, that might run them off before they even get the building. But I knew as the wheelhouse progressed, and we finally got to the point where we could afford to hire people, that I had to delegate my tasks. And I've had good help, different people that have been involved in. I'm not good at books. I'm good at accounting. So you have to know your strengths. You have to know what you're not good at. And when your business gets to a point where you can afford to pay somebody, bring them up. Or if you have a business partner, you have to be. You don't want to be identical. You want to have strengths and weaknesses that are different than your business partner.
Right.
So that combined you complete a full task. What was the first part of the question?
So I think you answered it. So my second part would be like, what are you good at? I feel like those are the things you're good at.
So I'm not good at managing at all. And unfortunately, I'm still the manager. So I'm wanting to, and that goes for Wheeler House, that goes for real estate. The night before, my dad was going to say, the night before, he sits down, he thinks what he's going to do, he buys whatever he needs at Home Depot and has it ready. And I'm the guy who wakes up an hour late in the morning, who rushes to Home Depot, and they're sitting on the job for 2 hours waiting on me. And I still, to this day, do that.
Yeah.
It's just, I gotta break that. You gotta be good at what you're good at and know what you need help with.
Right.
And part of that, I'm a little bit prideful, so part of that's just letting your pride go and letting, having some humility and just letting people come in and do what you're not good at.
Yeah.
So.
After 7 years, you feel like that you're getting to a point now.
Yes.
You've got a team of people helping you.
At the Wheeler House for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many people on your team?
4 full-time, and we have over 20 part-time employees.
And what do they do?
Full-time accountant, personal assistant, does some real estate and also Wheeler House. One that is, you might say, the manager, bookkeeper, but the wedding coordinator, and then an additional wedding coordinator.
Yeah.
Who does marketing, things like that.
So I think a phrase is hire out your weaknesses.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Social media, for example. I still to this day cannot figure out how to work Snapchat. Twitter is the most confusing thing in the world. I don't understand tweets, retweets. I cannot understand. I try to understand it. It's
Right.
so beyond my head. I actually deactivated my accounts last week. I finally gave up on it. And I try not to think of myself as being an old fogey, get out of my yard kind of guy. I've always kind of thought of myself as being more hip and into technology, but when it comes to social media, it's way out of my league.
Well,
My fiance is real good at that. That's what she does for attorneys, and she works and does all their marketing, social media, and it's just over my head.
Yeah. Well, it's important to know, and sometimes you have to figure that out.
Yes.
Stumble through that. What am I not good at, and I probably shouldn't do this anymore, or at
Yeah.
least learn how to get better if I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah, I also found out that I'm not a finisher. I'm a starter. Like I'm an idea guy, and I can think of things. I can think of, for example, on real estate, I can think of things that are no one else will look at. They'll see the same property. People who's been in business for 40 years have way more wisdom and experience than I do. I can see a project and see things different than they saw and resolve that problem. I call it trimming the hair off of it and make it clean and neat. And then, toward the end of the project, whether it's a land deal, renovation, flipping a home, whatever, toward the end, I lose Excitement, I lose. I think a little bit of ADD. I lose my excitement. I lose my focus. I want to do something new. So I like owning your own business because you can do something new every day. And one day I'll be on a piece of equipment doing something. The next day I'll be doing something with the Wheeler house. And the next day I'll be picking up a hammer and renovating a home. So something different every day.
So you're a starter. You're a visionary.
Yes, visionary, but not good at completing. Eventually, one of these days, I'm gonna find somebody who is just. And I think my fiance might be one of them.
She's a finisher.
She's a finisher. So maybe that'd be a good partnership as far as business goes as well.
Yeah, well, that's good. Maybe in the wedding ceremony, you can say I do first.
Yeah.
She can say the second.
You give her time to think about it too if she wants to.
There you go. Talk about, you have an interesting story about when you bought your dream truck,
Yes.
right? And you don't have to say how much you paid for it unless you want to. But
Well, I'd
there's an
like to
interesting
just to
story.
show how big of an idiot I was.
Okay.
I was 18 years old, and I told my dad, it's funny, I moved from Sequoia to Cherokee, and no offense against either school, I love both, but at Sequoia I was like 32nd, moved to Cherokee, and instantly my GPA was third out of 403 kids. Like, wow. So I told my dad, I said, if I become valedictorian, you buy me a new truck. He said yes. I don't know if he was fully serious, but he did say yes. Well, I was tied for second. I was salutatorian. I was within 1/1000th of being.
It's like first.
It's a slight first, tied for second, and I think him or my brother one made a comment that said, well, being salutatorian, who cares? That's like being valedictorian in summer school. Like, who cares, So I didn't get a new truck, but I convinced him to co-sign with me on a new truck. And I told you I bought my first rental property when I was a senior. I think put like 8,000 or 9,000 in and doubled my money. I thought, I'm gonna put down all the money that I've ever made right here on this one truck. So smart, right?
Right.
And paid 50-something thousand for this truck. And I knew that when I went to UGA, I'd have the nicest King Ranch, big old jacked up truck on campus, and I did. And what good did it do me? I mean, I don't know. I don't think anybody even knew who drove that truck.
And when you come up to a red light, people look at your truck.
Yeah, that's right. And then they showed up with the truck, and they had a finance charge on it. And I remember saying, well, I didn't know this $3,000 finance charge would be here, but I was so excited. I just signed it. Who cares? So I was probably in it for close to 60 by the time I paid interest for a few
And
years.
how old?
I was 18 or 19 when I bought it, because I was going to college. So I might have just turned 19. And a few years later, I bought some property. I can't remember which one it was, but I needed the money. There was a house in downtown Canton renovated. I needed the money. I sold it for $30,000. I was in for about 60. And so I tell a friend of mine, a buddy of mine, he made a comment one time, and he probably didn't mean disparagingly, but it kind of made me mad. He said something about Lusk, he's always had money, something like this, and a little bit of a put down. Of course, he's kind of kidding. So let me just explain something to you. I said, it's all about decisions, and decisions that I make affect everything you do. And I said, you buy a new truck every 5 years, and you put basically no money down. And I sat down with him and literally wrote out on like an Excel spreadsheet, wrote down the difference. I said, okay, when you're 25, you bought this truck, how much was it? And I said, okay, when I was 25, I bought a rental property with this much down payment. And I went through the numbers. And long story short, by the time he paid interest, and I'm collecting rent every month from my investment. So I'm making money, he's paying interest every month. At the end of 5 years, it was a difference of $175,000 because he bought a brand new $50,000 truck. So I think back to when I was 18, instead of me losing 30 grand, I could have made 100. And so I told him, I said, every time you buy a new truck, and that 5th year when you pay it off and you're so excited, and you go buy a new truck, just remember, you're 175 grand behind me. And I think Asher said last week, he quoted somebody that said, when your competition's working 40 hours a week, you need to be working 60. And sometimes that's just the simple truth. And I heard somebody on a radio talk show on January 1 this year, and he said something very profound that, it's common sense, but just hit me. And he said, a lot of people will make New Year's resolutions for losing weight or making better money decisions. He said, just remember, 1 year from today, every single decision you make, whether it be, if we're talking about financial, whether it be what you buy, if you go to a yard sale and buy it, or if you buy it new, that thing that you want, if you wait, I think Harvard came out, so if you wait 17 days and you still want it, it might be a need. If you can avoid the wants and only buy the needs, he said, every decision you make will accumulate and determine the position you're in exactly 1 year from today. Anything about eating, think about it takes a little bit of bad food here and there, and a year from January 1, you might gain 30 pounds. And it takes a long time to lose that back, and money's the same way. Little decisions you make Rather be buying a new car when you should have bought one that was 2 years old that was 20 grand less because, you know, you drove it off the lot. And, you know, they say you lose 10 grand the moment you drive it off. It's so true.
Yeah.
And now the market's booming. I see everybody can't drive all these new trucks. And it's like, I just bought a truck that had 300,000 miles on it, you know, and it's just like, I want everybody around me to do well, you know. I'm not tied to want people around me to do bad to make me feel better. I want everybody to do well. And so it bothers me when I see people not making good money decisions. And that goes for entrepreneurs too. Every decision you make will affect that.
You feel like that experience with the truck has kind of taught you?
It is. It was the best, worst decision I've ever made.
Yeah.
When I sold that truck, I said, I'll never buy another new truck. I will take any money I have and I'll invest it. My avenue is real estate because that's kind of my background, my family. Somebody might be more into stocks or bonds or whatever. I like touching things. I like having a piece of real estate I can rent, something I can touch, something I can subdivide.
Tangible, yeah.
Tangible. But to each their own. But nonetheless, you know, buy an inflationary asset, something's not going to go down in value.
Right. Yeah. Talk about a little bit about your. I know, you know, getting advice and watching your family be entrepreneurs for a long time. Talk about one of the greatest pieces of advice or maybe principles you put into action with your business now.
So biggest losses, biggest wins.
Sure. Yeah.
So one thing I do with the Cherokee County Chamber of Commerce career fair where we go speak to 8th grade kids, and I tell them all the time, I said, don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I worked as an apprenticeship my senior in high school for real estate law firms. I want to be a real estate attorney. And I was hell-bent on being a real estate attorney. And one of my dad's friends in construction, he came in often. And I would prepare the closing documents. So I saw what these people were profiting, you know, and what they made. And I'm just like, this gentleman, he made more money on one deal than my boss does in 3 or 4 years. And I've seen people, I saw one guy come in, he bought some apartments there in Canton, and I'm looking at the math, and I'm asking him, I'm like, how much you rent those for? You know, and I'm asking questions, I'm making notes, and I'm seeing these numbers thinking, my God, I just need to be in real estate. You know, instead of being a real estate attorney and then doing real estate on the side, I just need to just be real estate full time. And I forgot where I was going with that. You asked me
Advice and then
advice. So is one, don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask people. I called that guy out that knew my dad and I said, I want to go eat lunch. Anybody will eat lunch. Everybody's busy, but everybody's got to eat lunch. Took him lunch, picked his brain, and by 18 I did I started my first land deal, closed it by 19 off of the advice that he gave. And good advice, people that have learned and looking back, I think about how much he helped me with just 1 hour at Longhorns. And I'm more than glad if anybody ever calls, hey, take your lunch, I want to pick your brain. And I tell the kids every year, and I've never had anybody take me out, but I do take my 7 nieces and nephews out, and I'm pounding their brains as much as they'll let me about these type of things and decisions. And you know, don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask people. And I would say gather as much information as you can before you make a leap of faith or any kind of decisions. When I owned my biodiesel company, for 6 months, and I think it was in 2008 when the fuel was $4 or $5 a gallon. And you know, I said, I want to get into biofuel. And you take French fry grease, and through a chemical process, you make biofuel, and it's clean. You can drink it, it's so clean. So I met a guy up in Jasper who, during my 6-month research period, and he had inherited some money. His dad was in banking. He spent $150 grand of his inheritance on buying all this brand new equipment, and it was sharp. And I walked in this place, I'm like, man, you're gonna be cranking it out. Well, one thing about biodiesel is it's just like gas. $60 a barrel one day, 30 the next, 100 the next. You never know. And he went bankrupt. And I ended up buying a lot of his equipment at pennies on the dollar. And then within 1 month, I paid off 100% of my equipment in 1 month. And in 6 months, he lost all his. So we actually paid a guy in North Carolina $500 an hour. I called up a competitor. And I've had people do this in the wheelhouse. And I told them the same thing. I called up a competitor and I said, hey, I want to do biodiesel. I want to learn. He said, well, I don't want to teach you all mine. I said, well, I'll pay you. And he laughed. He said, okay, $500 an hour. I said, all right, I'll be there next weekend. I went up there. I think I paid him 2 hours maybe. But that $1,000 saved me, no telling how much the guy that in Jasper who inherited all that money, he lost it all. So, you gotta do your research, don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money and take your time. Too many people jump into things quickly, and I'm very impatient, and so if I can restrain, anybody can. I want to jump in and just do it.
Right.
And some of it is intuition, but a lot of it you have to research it and do some homework on.
Yeah, be willing to put the time and
Yes.
study into it.
Yeah.
Talk about, I know, and this might be our last question before we transition to you guys, and I've got so many other questions, but
Yeah.
I want to turn it over to them too. I know you shared the truck story, but what's another, you can call it a loss, you can call it a fail, lesson learned, whatever, that you might have had in specifically related to like the Wheeler house over the last 7 years?
I think it was a third year, we lost money that year, which was not uncommon for a business if you're a new startup. And I did the math, and I would have made about 88 grand that year, which means I could have paid myself 88,000 if we sold alcohol. So I went to my preacher, and he's a friend I look up to him too, and I said, I want to know why we don't believe in selling alcohol. Because if I'm going to do it, I need to know why. Point to it in the Bible, what he did. And it talked about not putting a stumbling block for your brethren. And I said, well, I just don't know what to do. And he said, well, if you do what you feel is right, he said, it'll pay off in the end. He said, maybe the good Lord bless you with $80,000 worth of more weddings. And it was about a month later that a girl had passed because her husband left the Wheeler house. And we don't sell alcohol. That's never something we did. And he drove away drunk, and he wrecked and killed her. And it was one of the saddest days we've ever had at Wheeler House. But looking back, my attorney said, hey, if you would have been providing the alcohol and serving it, he said, you wouldn't own the Wheeler House anymore. And my girlfriend works for an attorney who does wrongful death cases. I know for a fact I wouldn't own it today. And that's just one decision I made. And so go with your gut. I mean, if you feel like you need to do something right or wrong, you need to go with it. And one thing I've learned too is a lot of people want to make a quick buck, and they don't mind doing people wrong. I believe karma's, I think it comes back and gets you. Bad reputation, and you get where people won't work with you. I know people in real estate that they probably won't ever do anything in Cherokee County again because they've hurt too many people.
Yeah.
So I would just say go where you get and do what's right. When I emailed you last night, I said I have so many stories. It's like I don't even know where to begin, but so many losses.
Yeah.
And things you learn from, and some good wins too. But one I was going to tell you briefly. Ashley last month had mentioned. I asked him. I said, "How do you overcome not having a college degree?" Because that's been a problem I've had since the day I quit college.
Sure.
No one wants to take you serious, and unfortunately, I think Ashley's answer was, "You just got to have some gray beard and some wisdom, And unfortunately, it's taken like 15 years for me to get to that point. And it's true. It just doesn't come. You have to earn it. But I think that I forgot where I was going with that.
College degree, and then talking about earning.
Yes.
How do you overcome without that degree?
But I've had even family members in real estate, so you got to earn your stripes. We're not going to work until you earn your stripes. So a lot of times it's just you have to prove yourself. And unfortunately, there's no quick answer. There's no get rich quick scheme. There's no quick way to earn respect other than just
Blood, sweat, and time. And,
yeah. Well, I know what I was going to tell you, and I won't go into the specifics of the numbers, but I'll use examples proportionally correct. But I'll use examples. We had a property in Canton that we sold. It was commercial. We got it zoned, and before closing, I went to a local investor on property 2 doors down, and he had a lot of money. And I said, "Hey, we want to sell this property," and we were willing to sell it for about 80 cents on the dollar of what I felt like it was worth. In other words, he had already sold land for more. So I knew he was going to make money, and I think this had to do with me having a college degree. He was a doctor, and I was, a nobody. And he said, well, instead of giving me a price on the property, he said, I'll just pay you $100 grand to walk away. I said, well, no, that ain't how this works. This is what I want. Make me an offer on the land, and he refused to. And it was so insulting because he was telling me that I was only worth a certain amount of money, and I said, okay, no, thank you. And so we ended up. I sold about half of my equity in the property to get an investor to come in. Now, from his standpoint of view, he could have bought the property about $1 million. We ended up selling it for $5 million. Now, he could have made $4 million, but his greed and his own seeing me, nobody. He's a doctor, and his son's very well off too, and very well known, and he led his own. But that for me, I saw him at a Brian Kemp fundraiser last week. First time I seen him since I sold the property. I shook his hand real hard, I grabbed the back of his arm, and I just said, hey, how you doing? And I know he knows, because I know he knows every property up in that area. But that was and I didn't have to tell him. I'm a pretty humble guy. I wasn't going to throw him in his face. I just wanted to see him see me, and I know that he knows. So I think in business you just have to, sometimes you have to prove yourself, and not boast about it. Just keep your nose to the ground and just do your business and let it speak for itself.
That's good. That's a good transition to you guys. I want to turn it over to y'all for the next 12 minutes or so. And if you guys have any questions for Lee, for his story, for anything to do with the Wheeler House, or maybe even what the future looks like.
In all your different business ventures that you've had, and at what point do you look at scaling the business? You know, you start with one model, and when do you scale it? What are some of those things you look for
Yeah.
to maybe grow again?
As far as the Wheeler House goes, we were going to expand very quickly, because one thing I learned is that our expenses are X, and honestly, they're fixed. My payroll is the largest expense. Well, for maybe 10% more money in payroll, we can open up another venue and have double the potential revenue. And it might take us 5 years to get to max revenue, but for the longest time, we've wanted to do that. And it's just been finance, it's just been finding the right property. I even had a property in Norcross under contract. The zoning fell through. So we're always looking to open up new venues, but you want to scale whenever you get your model right. It took us years to get how to charge people. Do we do a la carte? Do we do but once we found that perfect sweet spot, and it just felt right. Things were happening. I didn't have to be there every day. It was profiting. That's whenever you can expand. Too many people expand too early. You got to get all the kinks worked out. And I know it's exciting about expanding and the opportunity of making more money, because anytime you can double your investment, that's great. But and we're right now, like I said, we're looking at potentially build another venue, and that will cut my costs in half. Not to mention, it's going to double my revenue. So, if we make 50 cents on the dollar, now we're going to be making 25 cents on $2, because we're going to double our revenue and cut our costs in half, because we're going to have two venues paying for it. So, scaling is where you really make money. Unfortunately for us, is the financing didn't allow us, and then the property, we didn't find the right property. And now we've had 26 competitors come in the last 4 years. So, honestly, while we are looking at expanding at least one more time, I don't know that I will expand any more in the wedding industry. I think right now we're looking at expanding within the Wheeler House, doing more internal stuff. We looked at doing flowers, building onto the barn, and doing some stuff to allow for floors to come up there, doing our own linens, things within that we can expand on. I know people who started businesses that have been more successful than their main business. They've started subsidy businesses. And, like, for example, doing the linens, and then 5 years now, my linen business, I've been making more than my wedding venue. So, that's kind of things we're looking at. And I actually met my fiance in the wedding industry, and so I think that's something we're going to start focusing on once we get settled down and start really cranking out the numbers.
I heard the $22,000 investment in the barn. What did it take you to build the barn?
In total, over $250,000 with the commercial kitchen. So it was pay as you go. It was get the money from the bride and go do some work until you ran out of money. Luckily, I never ran out. It was constantly a steady income. One of the places I've noticed my financial freedom has really gotten better is when the bank finally gave me a line of credit on the Wheeler House barn. They wouldn't loan me the money to build it. Then after I built and paid for it, they said, "Okay, we'll give you a line of credit." But honestly, it was the best thing that's ever happened to me, because it allowed me to, instead of me going and chasing, and this goes back to the whole college thing, instead of me going and chasing investors, trying to prove that I'm worth this, loan me the money, I can show you a history where and it's hard to find money, and especially 2008 to 2014, there was nobody. So when they did that line of credit in 2014, I went into debt to my eyeballs buying as much as I could with that line of credit and buying real estate at the down, and hoping to sell it in the good time.
Sure.
So that was funding is, I know, a problem with anybody, any business, and it's always been a struggle for me as well.
Lee, did you take a lot of before and after pictures in the Wheeler House that you've got to show people?
We did, and I probably should have brought them on a slideshow. And I've had people stop by who renovated it for me, And those pictures were even more interesting because I've always wondered who did this and why. And now I see,
Yeah.
you know, the people before me. And I don't know if anybody here has ever hung sheetrock, but a sheetrock is 4 foot by 8 foot. Well, they make patch sheetrock, which is 2 by 2. And it's only if somebody punches through the wall, you buy a little patch sheetrock. They went to an entire room and put in 2 by 2 squares. Obviously, they've never finished sheetrock before. That's a nightmare. So I was just like, who did this, you know? And then I had somebody come by, and a lady that used to own it, and she showed me these pictures, and I was like, well, who did you hire to do your sheetrock? But we do have lots. Yeah, we do have lots of photos at the Wheeler House. And we were going to do Christmas Store Homes. I was going to invite you, but then they canceled it recently. But anytime you're at the ball ground, stop by, and I got a whole book of renovated photos.
Why did you name it the Wheeler?
The guy that built it was John Wheeler. And so his great-grandson is the current mayor, Rick Roberts. There's a lot of history there. He owned a local lumber yard in downtown Ball Ground, and he would have his horse and buggy drag the lumber up, or drag it from his land behind the Wheeler House. He owned about 1,000 acres, hauled it downtown, cut it, and hauled it back. And I've been in many homes in Savannah and Charleston, and even they don't have heart pine floor, ceilings, and walls where the Wheeler House does, because he basically had it for free.
Oh, wow.
And the carpentry in there is just amazing. We had one room that has settled that we had to fix, but if you walk around the rest of the house, I've never seen a house with that perfect of carpentry. The floors are perfectly flat. That he did a good job. So I thought it'd be honorable to name it after him.
It is impressive. I mean, if you haven't been, it's just beautiful. Just the inside.
And then his, it'd be his daughter, who I ultimately bought it from. She, or not bought, I bought it from the bank, but she called me 2013, said, hey, I got 3 houses down here I want to sell. And this is in the downturn. So she'd already tried selling them, and it had too much work needed to be done. So she called me and said, I just want to sell it. And she said, I can't remember how much it was. Let me think for a minute. It was $287,000 for 3 homes. And then she said something about land. I said, what do you mean land? I thought I was buying 3 homes for $287,000. She goes, well, it comes with 22 acres. I said, that goes with it for the $287,000. And then, you sure that's what you want? Yeah. And she said, actually, she goes, I'd like to owner finance it. She goes, I'd like to get some income coming in, because in the downturn I had no credit, you know. And then she owner financed it. Yeah, and actually we finally refinanced 2 months ago and paid her off. But that was a godsend. But you know, I think a lot of that had to do with she had so much pride in the Wheeler House, and I didn't go plaster my name on it. I wanted to name it after the gentleman who built it, you know. And so I think honoring her father's history of, you know, she wanted to call me first and give me first dibs at it. And that's where we're thinking about maybe opening up a venue one day, another venue. So.
Any other questions?
On the cottages, they are very small. He built them as rental properties for his workers at the sawmill. So they're small, they're probably 1,200 square feet. We renovated them and redid it to where they're all 3-bedroom, 1 bath. One day we might add a 2nd bath, but they sleep 30 people. We let the brides come there and stay. I had a deal with Hampton Hotels where every time a Wheeler House bride stayed there, I got points. And I was going to Florida and all over staying for free. And I thought, well, if they're making so much money they can give me free days, maybe I just need to have our own, you know, hotel for the brides to stay at. So when she called me, that right there was our next venture, was to make that some cottages for people, the brides to stay at. You know, I'd be guessing, but I'd probably say a little over half, so maybe 60% of the brides stay in the cottages. A lot of our brides are from the area, and they don't have a lot of out-of-town guests. But we've had people drive up from Florida, and their whole entire family would stay at the cottages. So, dude, well, you know what? I told Rick the other day. I said we did the math. We had over 21,000 people come to the Wheeler House last year alone, and I mean, that's just, and there's like 5 venues in Ball Ground, so there's likely 50 to 100,000 people come to Ball Ground every year just for weddings. And the Pickens Tribune, I forgot the name, they did a story about a year ago on Ball Ground being the city of love or something like that. There's 5 venues there now, so it's quite a cool trend we've gotten involved in.
Right, just bringing that, I mean, that's economic development too,
Yes.
just bringing people in, people are eating at the restaurants.
Yes.
And then hopefully, I don't know if do you know if there's plans for, like a bed and breakfast or another place that?
Yeah, we actually are going to be putting our cottages hopefully on VRBO. We've been saying this for a while, but we've kept it exclusive for Wheelhouse Brides. But I think we're going to put that on as a bed and breakfast opportunity because we have a lot of people in the Gibbs Garden, a lot of people from out of town that don't want to leave ball ground.
Give them a place to stay.
Yeah, we've had people request us to stay in the Wheeler House, but when we done the Mountain Bed and Breakfast, you have to charge so much to make money. It's just, I don't think it would bring it at this time.
Yeah,
So I don't know, there are bed and breakfasts in ball ground now.
so you
Or
can
that-
potentially do that with your cottages.
That could be, yeah.
That's smart.
Do you ever have people that stay with you that aren't in a wedding party? They're like going to the mountains or going on the winery tour
Yeah.
or the apple festival? Or
That's kind of what we want to go toward is putting it on VRBO so that we can catch those people. We've been saying we're going to do it for a year. We just haven't done it yet. And I told my fiance the other night because she helps us do all of our marketing stuff. I said, let's just do it. Just get it on there. Let's just get it done. Get them on VRBO. We need a lot of our December events are not weddings; they're corporate events, and none of them want to stay there. I said, so we got a whole month of December. We have no income. So let's go ahead and get it on the VRBO. Let's capture that mountain crowd, the people coming up from Atlanta or wherever, and have them somewhere to stay, and encourage them to stay in ball ground. Right now, there's nowhere to stay in ball ground.
Right.
It's either Canton or I don't even think there's hotels in Jasper.
So Lee, thank you for your story. We really appreciate it. And I know there's so much more questions we could
Sure.
probably ask him. But if you guys have questions, you want to go him offline or grab some contact information, I'm sure you'd be happy to
Absolutely.
do that afterwards. Real quick before we transition to the last minute or two, can you mention some of the future plan at all? Is there anything
just-
future you can tell us?
As far as me overall, like I said, we are considering opening up another venue. If we do, we want to be the first to get married. That's why we're a little, at the time trying to figure out what we want to do.
Right.
I'm transitioning. I'm divesting from a lot of my real estate and selling those at the time. One, because it's the peak and I bought them in the downturn, and just have some other opportunities. But it's starting to stress me out a little bit. So we're trying to, and me and my fiance have 3 different businesses that we want to start. Got an invention that I come up with. We've got different a little restaurant we're looking at doing something with. So we're wanting to get rid of some of the stress, get married, and then let's kind of refocus and do. I like doing new things, like I said before. So I want to start pursuing more of starting a business rather than just focusing on real estate. And I think real estate is a good investment for any kind of money you might make. But I think it's only going to get you so far. There's only so many homes you can renovate, and only so many. And I've noticed, and I've even got a few patents and trademarks and different things. And over the years, I've struggled to try to fund different, and I never had the money to do it. And so I want to divest from a lot of the real estate, and then maybe pick 1 or 2 that I would really want to pursue, and try to start new businesses.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you for your story.
Yeah.